welcome back to GWN. I'm Noctar, your host. So today we're going to talk a little bit about PEKKA Barbs. And PEKKA Barbs is exactly what the name implies. It is, well, usually one camp of Raged Barbarians and then 5 camps of Super PEKKAs. As you may have noticed, the Super PEKKA got, let's just call it a sizable boost to her HP in this update. A happy, I don't know, 1,200 more HP. Yeah, she got a whole lot. And as a result, she's a pretty formidable, more formidable troop than even before. And the way this works, we're going to run, I think, 5, maybe 6 replays in the background as I talk here. The way this works, typically you start off by using your Raged Barbarians to kind of take out some of the buildings around the periphery. And along the way, if you can, you draw out those guard post troops, because guard post troops can keep a PEKKA going for forever. I mean, it just seems like she never manages to work through them. And when that happens, obviously, that disrupts the whole process of your attack, and it can really mess things up. So you want your Raged Barbarians to kind of clear the way for the PEKKAs to get in and do their thing. When they do that, whatever's left over, you just use to overwhelm the defenses, which is, I think, pretty standard for most Raged Barbarians. Generally speaking, the attack will last around, we'll call it about 2 minutes, give or take about 15 seconds. So it's a relatively long attack compared to some of the other ones. But I think this is probably next to PHog or PEKKA Glide with Hog Gliders and PEKKAs. I think this is probably the next strongest ground attack in the game right now, and it's being used pretty heavily. A lot of people are running this attack strategy, so it's not I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Raged Barbarian, of course, gets some additional hit points and some additional DPS as well, so I mean, it's not like that's anything to turn your nose up at, but it really is the Super PEKKA that makes the difference in this attack strategy. So let's keep on watching. Next replay, this one from Dollar Tree, and it's a Sidewinder base. Same basic idea applies. I think that really this works best, like a lot of these ground attacks, when you don't have to spend a lot of time working on walls. Now, that's not to say that you can't. Lots of people do, especially with the Super PEKKA, because with her brute strength, you can usually knock through it. But more often than not, it's going to really work to your best advantage if you've got an open base, kind of like this one, or even if there's just a couple of small openings. In some cases, you can have one opening and then create another one elsewhere. But ideally, you want multiple vectors for ingress. You want to be able to come in 2 different places. And again, as you saw in this one, if you can draw out those guard post troops, that's going to do it for you. Get them out, and there won't be a whole heck of a lot to slow down your Super PEKKAs as they move into the center of the base. Most bases, not all, but most bases are going to have the toughest big bads, if you will, kind of centralized. So you're going to see your key defenses more or less in the hub of most of these bases. So what are we talking here? We're talking your lava launcher. We're talking the roaster, the giant cannon, all of the Mega Tesla, all of the things that are going to cause the greatest grief for any troops. Additionally, most bases have relatively centralized crushers. Crushers are tough on ground troops. Double cannons do a number on ground troops. So I mean, we're looking at running in from one side of the base and essentially disabling the key defenses lickety-split, so that all that really remains are, generally speaking, your secondary defenses, so that it's not so much of a challenge for what remains in your troops. If you get against some of the full max bases and the ones that are a little bit further along, and I think we got one that's further along here in a minute, you may find that it's a little bit tougher. Been still seeing lots and lots and lots of 3 stars as more and more bases are upgrading, but a lot of players are getting up over 5,000. I think season high so far this season is hanging around 5,500, give or take. I know Turtle's been hanging out up there. And these players are starting to see more and more max defenses. In fact, they're seeing a couple of fully max bases, walls and all. I've got a couple of those replays, but not very many of those to share yet because there's just not that many people out there with it. A lot of players are focusing primarily on their troops right now. Case in point, I have the Super PEKKA, the Beta Minion, the Drop Ship, all maxed out and ready and rolling, as well as cannon cars, of course, as part of the auto upgrade, obviously. And right now, I've started to work on getting my Hog Gliders upgraded. And I think you're seeing more and more of this as higher level players max out typically 2 or 3 troops very quickly, very early on, using books of fighting as well as hammers of fighting. We got CWL going on right now, and as soon as that's over with, I should have enough for 2 or 3 hammers of fighting, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use those on my Hog Gliders. The goal is to get my Hog Gliders maxed out by hopefully the first week of August. So I think that a lot of players are doing very much the same thing. And as players continue to max out more and more of these troops, starting off with, I think, are probably the meanest of the new troops. Things like, for example, the baby dragons, if you're an air guy, or the beta minions, of course. Super PEKKA, the cannon carts, even Raged Barbarians, which are always the cheapest, but give you a pretty good bang for the buck. These troops are all getting maxed out first, and that's why we're seeing more and more of these particular attack strategies. As I've said before, this is a definite offense-centric game right now. So if you're into offense, buddy, this is your game. It is absolutely cranking. The defense is nowhere near able to keep up yet, and even when it gets fully maxed, I'm not convinced it's going to be able to stop these attacks as good and as strong as they are. The topmost players, they're getting lots of 3 stars, and that's what they need in order to win. I've run, I think it was, I ran about 8 hours yesterday of pushing, just to kind of see what it was like. Got up to about 5,200. And as I was doing that, I was seeing lots of these attacks, whether it was a PHog attack or a PEKKA Barb or whatever. And in the cases where their attacks pulled in less than 70%, I was able to win every time. The only time I didn't was if I completely fat-fingered it, which we all know that happens sometimes, right? So what I'm seeing as far as higher level players over the 5,000 mark right now is you have to get 85% or better, in a lot of cases 3 stars, in order to win. And that's why a lot of players are working on those Hog Gliders or using power potions to max them out. The PEKKA Barb strategy is another good, solid 3-star strategy when done properly. Usually ends up taking out all but a few buildings, which you have to wait, 20, 30 seconds to get through at the very end, like you see in this particular replay. But when it jumps into the middle of the base and takes out all those defenses, that happens usually within the first minute of the attack. For PHog, it happens within the first 30 seconds, but PEKKA Barb's a little bit slower, still gets the job done, and essentially takes out all the defenses in the middle of the strong hub, leaving you with just miscellaneous buildings and maybe a couple of weaker defenses that you need to take out. Once more to review this, how this strategy works. Take a look at your base, figure out, first and foremost, what do you want to knock out? You want to knock out the guard post, you want to knock out buildings that are around the outside, right? Once you've got those buildings down, the things that are going to distract your Super PEKKAs, the things that are going to cause you the most grief, they're not going to be there anymore. So you're going to be able to move your troops in a much more effective fashion, and you're going to get a lot further. Is it necessary to do it this way? No, it's not. In some cases, you can come in from the side opposite of the guard post troops. You may have a side that has no buildings on it at all, and you go in there. That's perfectly fine. You can do that. Just understand that if you have a base like, say, this one, where you've got a lot of buildings around the outside and you got those guard post troops, if you come in from over on the side where the guard post troop is, or if you try to ignore the buildings around the outside, your Super PEKKAs may go a little wild on you. But once you finally get that done, you break into the base. 2 or 3 Super PEKKAs all it needs to takes to totally break through these walls. I mean, here we got level 9 walls, right? But once you do that, you want your troops to bum rush into the middle of the base and just start demolishing. If they stick together like the Super PEKKAs are here, you're in like Flint. They're going to very quickly take down all of the worst of the defenses until finally you've got maybe 2 or 3 of them left over, maybe the battle machine, or like we got in this case, there's 5 of them left over, and all that really remains are a couple of small defenses and the general miscellaneous buildings like, you know, storages and, oh, the clock tower and Star Laboratory, things like that. Now, a lot of players are also using the Super PEKKAs in other ways. We did a video on this. Make sure you check it out. There are mass Super PEKKA attacks that are happening, and they are very effective. They work very, very well against a lot of these bases that have not yet been fully upgraded. You're seeing PEKKA carts also working very, very well, taking down a lot of bases and doing a ton of damage. I definitely got to say I like the Super PEKKA right now, guys. So if you're working on your upgrade strategy still, remember what I always say. Very first upgrade should be the attack strategy with which you are the most comfortable, the best practice, the one that you do the best with. Once you've got that done, then it's time to start looking at some of the other troops. Hopefully you've already maxed out all of your troops. Okay, we had lots and lots of time to do it. I mean, Builder Hall 8 was 15 months long. So hopefully you've got level 16 Super PEKKAs. And if you don't, well, you know, you might want to move them up the list to knock them out a little bit sooner. I don't know that they're ever going to be nerfed. It depends on, you know, how the 3-stars work out at the top, obviously. But at least for right now, they've got a good, solid future ahead of them. Same thing goes for the Hog Rider. Good, solid future ahead of it. And as you watch each of these replays, hopefully you've seen, it's very much a runbook kind of attack strategy using these Super PEKKAs. And I've seen pretty much the same thing with a lot of the attacks that the Super PEKKA's involved in. You know, when you send her in or what specific functions she serves within the attack strategy. So it's a very consistent troop, which means that you're going to get consistent results. And if you're pushing, that's very important. You want to get those consistent results because you could drop 50 points in a single match, which is absolutely huge when you're, you know, typically only getting 25 or 30 in a match as well. So hopefully you guys have found this useful. We've gone through several replays. The guys over at Creative are absolutely killing it using this strategy and PHog and really a whole bunch of them. And if you got any questions, comments, you know, let me know what it is you want to see, what you think of this particular attack strategy. Always happy to work on getting specific or unique replays that we can share with you here. The guys at Creative use just about every strategy that's out there, and they're getting a lot of 3-stars. I think we're going to start seeing less 3-stars here in the very near future, but for right now, we're seeing lots of good, solid 3-stars that are coming out of them, and I hope that that really helps illustrate how each one of these attack strategies work as you work through it and improve your own game. Thanks a lot for sticking around to the end of the video, and I will be back here in another couple days with more Clash of Clans Builder Base, trying to get about 2 or 3 videos out every week. Y'all take care and keep on clashing. Bye now.